Hey everyone, Tony D and Little Joan here with a screenwriting tip. And today I'm going to talk about how to write, well, I guess you'd call it a medical drama or something medical. All right, so the closest thing I've written to a medical drama is Intergalactic Medical Doctor on the Webcomic Factory with Christian Baranek, and our artist Dave Windet. So you can check that out at thewebcomicfactory.com. The reason we kind of chose that concept is because neither one of us are medical people, and we could make the medical stuff up because it all take place in space. So it was kind of like Star Trek if all the medical stuff would be the focus. So it would be like ER in space. I can't believe they haven't done this on TV because medical dramas are so popular. I can't believe the idiots at CBS didn't come up with this idea. Let me tell you, CBS, I'll write it for you. Me and Christian, we'll write a Star Trek medical drama. We'll call it Hospital Ship or whatever. It'll be great. And that's what we did with Intergalactic Medical Doctor. He was sort of a quirky kind of guy. He was kind of fun and whimsical, living in the future, but he would have to solve the medical problems of outer space, And the thing about medical dramas is everything has to come back to the medicine and the characters dispensing it. They have to be obviously incredibly bright people. Doctors are. If you look at a medical drama like House, it's pretty much Sherlock Holmes meets a medical drama, is basically kind of the pitch, along with some other elements too. But you need a character who knows his stuff. I was a big fan back in the day of Quincy, and the focus on that show, Quincy was played by Jack Klugman, who was also Oscar Madison in The Odd Couple, and he played a coroner. And coroners are the guys who handle dead bodies. They do the autopsies. And he would solve mysteries from the autopsies. So I had a college professor who actually wrote an episode of Quincy. He knew Jack Klugman was a big fan of horse racing. So he wrote a story in which Quincy has to autopsy a racing horse to solve the mystery. So obviously you need to do a ton of research when you do a medical drama. You have to know enough about medicine in order to be able to have the characters talk sensibly about it. And they can't just, you just can't read it out of a book. You have to understand how procedures work in a hospital, in a medical setting. If you do it in a period piece, if you do it in a certain time period, you're going to have to know where the medical technology was and what hospitals were like. Hospitals were very different prior to HMOs in the United States. They were pretty damn effective. If you go further back in time, I've talked in other videos about medical lodges, and this is turn of the century stuff, early 1900s, where a doctor would actually visit your home or come to you more often than not, because it just was that way. Doctors came to your house. You didn't go to their office necessarily. That all changed. And doctors tend to be not only well educated, they tend to have a little bit of money. So that's often a factor in dealing with them. They're very rarely are doctors poor. So even in the Wild West, they had a little bit of money. Of course, you go back to the Wild West days, medicine starts to get kind of primitive. It's not really till the late 1800s where really things start shooting up and a lot of discoveries happen. So, that's a big factor in your medical drama, whatever it is. But still, you can do a medical drama that takes place in the Wild West, which is pretty close to the late 1800s, and those your main character could be that genius who was ahead of the curve. He didn't get the credit for it, but he was ahead of the curve on a lot of these experimental things, and he keeps track of it all, and he uses them to save people in the Wild West. That could be a fun character. So a lot of times your main character is just going to be a doctor or a nurse or both. They're going to be people in the medical profession, so you really need to know how they work. I dated actually a woman who was a doctor for a while, and learned a little bit about how they do their residency, how they go with lack of sleep for hours and hours and still have to function and treat people, and grab little naps on a bench somewhere in the storage room, and how they used to, I don't think they do it anymore, but they used to put people through their paces. They had to stay up 72 hours straight and still do doctoring, which is a little scary to me. It seems counterproductive in this society. I get it. I don't think you could train for being that tired, but I guess you could maybe. There was a lot of things I learned just hearing stories from her and her experiences. So it's important you sort of hear those things, and now you got the internet, so there's stories all over the place of what it's like to be in a trauma unit, in ER, and in a hospice and places like that. So it's more important than ever for medical drama or medical anything is you got to do so much research. You have to know it backwards and forwards, the particular things that it's going to be about. Now, the focus of your drama ultimately is the people, right? So you got to come up with something, with House, he was always like taking it to the limits, right? He's very tactless, and he was taking drugs, and there was always some sort of drama going on with him, not just the patients he was working with. For Intergalactic Medical Doctor, the deal was that he was sort of this quirky, annoying guy, and the guys who ran the ship were more like military guys. So they conflicted in that way. He was more of a healer, and they were more army guys. That was kind of the tension in MASH, right? The guys in MASH, they were surgeons, and they wanted to heal, and they were constantly trying to heal people from a war. And over the years it got really, really dramatic, but it was mostly a comedy, especially in that first season. If you ever get a chance to watch the first season of MASH, it's really great, and it's really funny, especially the first episode. It's a lot closer to the movie, and even like wackier, really. The movie's a little dark, but funny. But the TV show, that first season, man, it's pretty hilarious. So you need to use the medical stuff. You need to know what it's about, but it has to be about the people. So their character arc has to do with a lot of times on MASH it was about Hawkeye's dad. His dad was a doctor too, and it was like Hawkeye was a brilliant surgeon, but he couldn't heal the war, kind of thing. He sort of was dealing with his limits as a surgeon, and dealing with Frank Burns, who was a terrible surgeon, for Intergalactic Medical Doctor, it was about him trying to save people too. It's usually about healing, right? It's usually all the characters they want to help people, and they became doctors. They're not going to hurt people, so you don't become a doctor to hurt people, really. I mean, I guess you could do a drama in which the doctor just cares about his money, but probably wouldn't be a very sympathetic character. You got comedies, you got dramas, you got My Sci-Fi, Intergalactic Medical Doctor, me and Christian, TM. And I'm sure there's plenty of other ways to go with that. There's different time periods. I'm sure you could do some sort of ghost doctor if you really tried to think about it for a while. The settings will all be the same, but in the end, it's about the medicine and the people who practice it. So usually the first act is going to be the setups for the characters and why they do what they do. And usually you're going to have your main character. He's probably a brilliant doctor who's, maybe a little unorthodox. And then the second act, something happens, and it's a really big medical emergency, and only the brilliant doctor can save him, but he's so unorthodox he nearly gets kicked out of the hospital, but they have to bring him in because he's just that good. And then he starts figuring things out, and maybe some of the people in the hospital don't want him around, and he has to do it on the sly, and maybe the cops are after him too, and he still does it anyway because he's risking it all to save people's lives. And then in the third act, it looks very dark. He gets caught, and he's not going to be able to save people. But then, the people who catch him, they get sick too, and he gets sick, and at the last minute he comes up with this brilliant cure, and he saves them, and they realize, my God, he is a genius, and we need him to save us, damn it. And he saves the whole hospital. The end. That's basically what you're gonna do. Do your research, but don't forget that all that medical stuff is just icing on the cake. The real story has got to be about the people. It's got to be about the transformative nature of the hero and why he saves people, why he does what he does, and how it changes him, how it changes him as a person, how it changes the people around him. That's what we need to see. That is more crucial than anything. Even if you get some of the medical stuff, you don't get it quite right, and later you have to fix it. But the transformative nature of the characters is numero uno. So good luck, screenwriters. I will see you next time.